Muhammad Ali, popularly known as Mo Ali, is the Secretary General of the Liberia Council of Patriots. He is in the Liberian capital of Monrovia and now joins us via Skype. Mo Ali, good evening and thank you so much for joining us on The Globe.
Good evening and thank you for having me.
Now, this is another round of anti-government protests, and this is literally the second in a year since President George Weah took over as president, the third since his presidency. What's the latest with regards to the protests?
Well, it shows that continuously the economy is continuously going down the drain. The president and the executive branch of government continues to interfere with the functions of the judiciary. They continue to interfere with the functions of the legislative branch of government, and the hardship is increasing. Prices of basic commodities are skyrocketing, and Liberians cannot afford to even pay their children's school fees. So these are some of the reasons why Liberians have decided to continue to protest so that the president can deliver on his campaign promises.
Now, Liberia's economy has declined dramatically. There's, scenes of banks being unable to pay depositors, salaries being delayed, and prices of basic commodities having skyrocketed. And people are basically calling for a change of the political guard, especially the economic management team in government. And this is, they're saying, is falling on deaf ears. Do you think that President Weah will give the people what they're looking for?
The president over the past time has shown no intention of listening to the people. And you are absolutely right. The economic management thing is inept, headed by the finance minister, Samuel Tuer. He has shown no knowledge on how to resuscitate the economy. There is no program, there is no plan, there is no strategy on how we can move the economy forward. And that's why basically Liberians are calling for the changing of the entire economic management thing. And like you stated, people go to bank, they've deposited their monies, they don't get their monies out. The government will send alerts on mobile phones that they've paid civil servants. It's all in the newspapers, on the radio stations. And yet they go to the bank, they cannot get their salaries. People cannot afford square meals a day. So all of these things are problems created by the ineptitude of the economic management team. And that's why we are demanding that the team be changed, because when the hardship comes, it does not depend which political spectrum you find yourself in, whether you are part of the ruling class or part of the opposition bloc. Everyone suffers equally.
Now, there's scenes that we have visuals there where we're seeing police using tear gas and water cannon to disperse the crowds and disperse protesters. Were there any injuries today? Are people safe in terms of the people who are protesting today, with which was plus minus 3,000 people?
Well, there are people who sustain injuries. We've recorded 10 persons who sustained injuries, and about 25 persons were arrested. With our intervention, they've been released. And then we intended staying overnight because most of our supporters are civil servants who work with government ministries and agencies. And so when the crowd began to swell, the government got jittery that when we stay over the next day, you would have tens of thousands of people. And that would have shown the level of magnitude of disapproval of the governance system. And so the government could not stand that. So unprovoked, they decided to use water cannon and tear gas to disperse the crowd very violently.
And what's been the reaction from government with regards to what the people on the ground are calling for in terms of, you touched on the issue of no changes have been made, but this is now becoming more and more serious with more people going into the streets and civil servants staying away from work. What's government's reaction to all the protests that are taking place? It must have an impact.
Interestingly, the president continues to say that things are better off in the country. If since he became president, the economy is doing great. There are jobs. You know, it shows how insensitive he is and ill-informed he is as to the happenings in the surrounding. He doesn't care about anything. The president does fabulous travels, more than 50, 60% on a single trip. They take fabulous up and down to travel and on trips that are bringing absolutely nothing to the country, no dividends from his trip. And so he has not shown anything that he's willing to listen. But we can say from the end of the Council of Patriots, if the president does not listen, we will continue to get into the streets until he can do what we want. Because Article 1 of our Constitution says very clearly that all governments are instituted for the satisfaction and safety of the people.
Now, you know, the protest, the initial slogan of the protest was Wear Step Down campaign. This is now from the organizers, and this then changed when people said it was undemocratic and that they simply wanted him to account for the country's finances. Let's speak about the $25 million his government withdrew from the country's federal reserves in an account in New York, in which they claim to would be used in infusing the economy. That status there, what exactly happened? And, you know, the people on the ground, some are saying there seems to be some sort of division with regards to what should happen and how George Weah should account for some of these funds where there was discrepancies.
Well, about 2 years ago, there were so much Liberian dollars in the economy circulating the market. And President Weah decided that in order to reduce the amount of Liberian dollars in the economy, they withdrew 25 million from our reserve in New York and decided to mop out excess Liberian dollar. Now, what happened to that money, nobody knows, because they said they withdrew about 3-point-something billion Liberian dollars from the economy. We did not feel the effect of it. But here is the interesting thing. A year later, and there is totally shortage of Liberian dollar in the economy. You go to the banks, you can't get Liberian dollar. And there have been several reports, investigative reports, that have shown that there was mismanagement of this 25 million, that people did not go through the right procedure to do the bop-up exercise. And those reports have indicated that, in fact, there must have been money laundering, that people in the economic management thing have not gone through the proper process, and so some mismanagement have happened. We have asked the president to take action against those involved into it. He has refused. Instead, he keeps carrying the report back and forth from one agency to another. Now, our latest demand says, publish the report from the Liberia Anti-Corruption Commission so that those who are culpable can be prosecuted. And still he has refused. He has said completely that the issue of the 25 million is closed and there's no more going back on it.
Now, with reports that he is amassing a lot of property and investment in his personal capacity as George Weah as an individual, what's the way forward for the people of Liberia?
Now, that's part of our demand. We have said that because the president took over in January 2018, he demolished his 9th Street residence and is building a bulletproof boarding residence there. In less than 6 months, we saw a condominium of 48 units going up and completed. And so we said, publish your assets that you've declared so that we can know exactly what you came to government with and what you've acquired. And the president has refused to do that. And once you don't do that, people will assume that all of these properties we are acquiring over the time of your presidency are coming from state resources. So it's only fair, for the sake of transparency, for you to publish your assets so the Liberian people and the world can know that you are not stealing from our coffers.
Now, for how long are you hoping to continue with the protest action? And if there is no response or reaction from President George Weah and his government, what then?
Well, there are several steps that we can take. First, we will continue to pressurize the government through this protest action, but we are also going to begin to pressurize the legislature so that they can call the president and find out from him what's going on. We have also decided to petition our legislature in both the House of Representatives and the Senate to begin to investigate the president and possibly draw up an impeachment procedure against him.
Mo Ali, thank you for your time. We'll leave it there for now. That is Mohammed Ali, popularly known as Mo Ali, and he is the Secretary General of the Liberia Council of Patriots, and he was joining us from the Liberian capital, Monrovia.